All right. Up next is a St. Kitts and Nevis creative professional and public servant. At 22, she became director of the creative economy. She holds 3 degrees, including a master's in arts administration. She also leads SKN Creatives and ADA-SKN Promoting Cultural Development. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Roberitine Webbe. Please, a round of applause for her. Moderating this powerful panel is the permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's Office of St. Kitts and Nevis. With over 20 years of experience in youth development, she has contributed significantly to national social programs. Born in Canada and raised in St. Kitts and Nevis, she has worked in the advancement of Children Foundation and collaborates with international partners on national development initiatives. Please can we put our hands together for Miss Naeemah Hazelle. I see she was already on her seat, and she'll be the moderator for this panel. Earlier, we had an all-women panel, and we are blessed again amongst women to have another all-women panel. Can we put our hands together? All right, culture and the creative economy. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. I hope we're still all awake. I know in the Caribbean, after we eat, the afternoon is generally a very sleepy session. So we're hoping to keep this lively and conversational with my 2 guests on the panel today. So as our host so ably established, of course, I'd like to adopt the protocol, and a special welcome to our distinguished guests, as well as, of course, our delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis, including, of course, our Minister of Agriculture and the Orange Economy. This is his ministry. I noticed that you have a lot of ministries as well. I was sitting down listening to you reading the ministries, and I was thinking, maybe we need more ministers. We need to change our constitution. Each of our ministers have like 8 portfolios, you know? So, as well as the Premier of Nevis, and welcome, of course, to this session on culture and the creative economy. We want to thank, of course, our host, Ms. Aisha, my Nigerian sister, and CEO and Managing Director. She's a remarkable businesswoman and a friend to myself and our country. Thank you. But today, I am privileged to have 2 more remarkable women whose work embodies the spirit of innovation, creativity, and cultural exchange that this conference seeks to promote. So, first, Aisha, Augie, is a trailblazer in the creative and cultural sectors of Africa. As the Director General of the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization, she's been at the forefront of preserving and promoting African heritage. Aisha is not only an accomplished photographer and filmmaker, but also a visionary leader who has seamlessly bridged the gap between the private and the public sectors, which is not easy. Her work emphasizes youth and women empowerment, and her accolades include being named one of 100 most influential people of African descent. You can applaud that. Aisha's dedication to fostering creativity and communication as tools for meaningful change is truly inspiring. Joining us as well, of course, is a face familiar to me. That's Ms. Roberitine Webbe, a dynamic force in the Caribbean's creative landscape. As a dancer, choreographer, and cultural advocate, Roberitine has used her artistry to tell powerful stories and promote the Orange economy. Her innovative work, such as the dance film Tribal Love, yes, I remember that, highlight the fusion of Afro-Caribbean and contemporary styles, celebrating diversity and empowerment. Beyond her artistic achievements, Roberitine serves as a leader in the Department of Creative Economy in St. Kitts and Nevis at only 25 years old. She's our youngest director, where she champions the growth of the cultural and creative industries. So welcome, ladies. I look forward to an exciting discussion. I asked to adopt your first name since we're having a conversation. Feel free to call me Naeemah, Roberitine, Aisha. All right, so my first question, of course, from yesterday's panel, Aisha, I was actually very engaged by your energy and your enthusiasm for the creative economy. I was thinking, what am I going to talk about tomorrow after Aisha moderated, you know? So I would like you, as Director General for the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization, just share with us, for our audience abroad and those here who are not as familiar, what the role of the center is and why it's important in the context of the African continent and diaspora.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, ACL, for having me again. And obviously, we've been interacting with each other, and I'm really happy to say that we have mutually understood ourselves in the last 24 hours. And now we have friends and family in St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's right.
So I would say the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization started in post-1977.
Oh, wow.
Nigeria hosted 59 Black and African nations for the Festival of Black and African Arts and Culture. And this was a huge one-month event that had 59 countries here, 16,000 participants, obviously people watching globally. We have even an amazing story of the likes of Stevie Wonder collecting his Grammy, one of the first telecasted shows from Nigeria, instead of going back to the US to get it. That happened during Festac. So we have many stories like that. But what the center does is we were given in trust everything that came to Nigeria in 1977 for Festac. And we're talking audio-visual, over 1,000 vinyl records, over 1,000 reel-to-reel videos. Like, they're still very old school and in our archive and our museum. We have books that came through. We have art and artifacts from all the different countries. And we have an exhibition called Our Shared Heritage, which shows our similarities and differences in the different types of items that we've used culturally. Mm-hmm. And for me, becoming the Director General was what's the word I would use? It was mind-opening, because in the last year and 2-3 months, I've learned so much about Africa, even though I have traveled across almost most of Africa as a photographer and obviously as a cultural enthusiast myself. Being in a space that holds that much history, but unfortunately the world has not had the opportunity to experience it if you didn't come to the center, so we're working on that. So our job is basically to promote, propagate, and project the Black and African arts and culture globally. We have items there from Australia, Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago, and all of these things come with a story. Apart from that, we have videos of all the performances from all the different countries that came to Nigeria. So many stories. I can keep going on and on. But there's a research and publication unit, there's an archive, there's a museum, there's a children's unit, and UNESCO has been very gracious to continue sending us children's books. We're open to collaborations in every possible way that you can think of, as long as it is connected to the art and history, culture, and civilization of the Black and African people. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we do. Thank you. I hope that's not too much.
No, that's a lot. I hope everybody captured that. You know, it's interesting when you said Festa. We actually have a Cara Festa. It's actually surprising me how many things we have in common. Today when we were watching the drummers and the dancers, I was saying, that's the dances we do at home. We don't drum and dance at the same time. That's very ambitious. But I was saying, wow, that's the dances. Those are exactly the same dances we do at home. We're actually naming them as the dances that we know locally, which I'm sure is not the same names here. But thank you very much for sharing that. And you, Roberitine, you are the young lead of a very young ministry. This ministry is only 2 years old, yes. Tell me a bit more about your ministry, your mandate, and your strategic direction in line with the Sustainable Island Agenda of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Greetings, everyone. So the Department of Creative Economy in St. Kitts is only 2.5 years old, and I came in the inaugural stage of it. Mm-hmm. And we are tasked with the development of everything creative economy that stems from arts, entertainment, cultural heritage as well. We have 10 sectors that we cover. I can mention a few because the 10 are not coming to mind, but particularly film and media, performing arts, visual arts and crafts, and innovation and gaming as well. So just to give you a background, in terms of creative economy, we are coming from a industry that is deemed an hobbyist industry. So there was no sort of formalization or professionalization of it. We're now creating standards. We're now facilitating lots of training, networking, overall advancement of the creative industries. And our mission is basically to unlock the potential of our creatives and fuel the creative power. And so we are aggressively and actively trying to, reach global standards, even though a baby, because we have unlimited talents that just needs, guidance and the proper environment for it to grow. And so that is basically what the creative economy is about in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you very much. When you were answering that question, it actually made me think. I've, of course, read both of your bios, and I realized that you've both been doing creative economy or working creative industry since you're young. And I wanted to ask Aisha, you as a photographer, and of course, Roberitine, you as a dancer, and now you're in respective careers in the orange economy. So traditionally, though, in the Caribbean, as much as I'm sure in Nigeria, this work is often undervalued. So like you just said, it's seen as like a hobbyist. And it's very hard to go and tell your parents, I'm going to be in a career in the creative economy. It's not a traditional career. So from your knowledge and experience, how can we change perception and inspire more young people to pursue careers in the creative economy?
So, first of all, amazing. I'm really glad to hear at your age and the last 2 years of the work that you're doing. She mentioned something and said hobbyist.
Yes.
Most people, when they ask you, what do? You say you're a photographer. What else do you do?
Yes.
That's the next question, right? Mm-hmm. So I think for me, even back in the day, saying that it was more like, everyone just looked at me like, you don't have a future ambition? Like, why would you want to be running around with a camera? And we're talking 25 years ago, so it's not even like now. So basically when you were born. So when you said her age, I was just like, oh dear God, I'm old. But the point is, for their generation, I'm loving the value, and they're creating names for themselves. There's now like content developers, there's influencer, names are coming up, even within the styling industry, the film industry. A gaffer was just a gaffer, but today it's a lighting consultant or, mood enhancer, things like that. So I really love that the younger people are not waiting for anybody to, I always used to say then, the world will catch up. Do you and the world will catch up. So I think we've gotten to a point where Africa, Black people, the rest of the world had already seen our value when it comes to talent, sports, entertainment. We were the ones who hadn't accepted it ourselves. And I'm really glad that Africa is now seeing it as, we need to get our royalties. We need to ensure that our people are properly taken care of. We need to ensure that what is meant for them will get to them, not that our resources are taken out and used to glorify and build other people, right? So I think that's really the major difference. We went through a lot, and one of the reasons I'm still in this sector and I'm made sure to get onto the policy side is to just so that a lot of younger people wouldn't have to go through what I went through growing up. And I'm really glad to see a younger generation in those offices taking charge. It's been a roller coaster, but the differences are being made. In Nigeria, the cultural policy has been reviewed. The IP policy has been reviewed. Obviously, various youth policies. We would love to see more youth in charge of these spaces because they are very innovative. I'm learning a lot from the younger generation of people that I've mentored. They have no idea. They look up to me, but I'm learning and absorbing the newer and faster way of doing things. So really, it's been a really hectic journey. But what you said earlier, I remember saying to a family member who did say to me that I clearly didn't have a future ambition, that the number one citizen of the country has validated, because then it was prestigious to be in government, right? And I never really wanted to be in that space. So now I'm like, so now that I have a government job, do I finally have a job? It's still doing what I love to do. So, but yes, That's really the background.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
actually glad you brought up the bridge because I think people often say, okay, that's for the young people. But it's for all the people. Culture is extended, So, and I think that we forget that there's experience and there's innovation, and one doesn't exist without the other. So it's really a partnership. So thank you for highlighting that.
Fun fact. So I initially went to school for accounting. And while I did well in accounting, worked for, the big fours and so forth, it was not me. And so I had to find me, and I found it by not liking working. Well, it's not accounting, working in corporate America at the time. And I recognized I wanted to pursue my passions, which was creative arts. And so I'm a dancer, and so my next degree was my bachelor's in dance. And, growing up, I wanted to be a professional dancer, but it's a very competitive space. However, growing up in St. Kitts and recognizing that even though we have the passion for it, the infrastructure and the resources just weren't there. The knowledge, the administration. And so my thinking was, how do we bridge the creative industries with the rest of it? The sectors that have the resources, basically. And that's when I pursued my master's in arts administration, because it was the translation between the creative industries and everything else, whether it's health, tourism, economics, and so forth. And I went through that route where persons was like, well, you want to work in the creative industry, it's a hobby, it's nothing. And I am a very ambitious person, and say, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get it done. And that's what I did. And so the reason, what I would say is that I'm happy I'm in the position that I am. Thankful to Minister Duggins as well for seeing that, inspiration and the potential in me. But I recognize that I have to ensure that the future generations get the resources and the facilitation that they need in order to thrive and, allow the creative industry to be what it can be, because it can be extremely successful, and not just on the social development side, but on the economic side. We speak about tourism. What makes St. Kitts and Nevis different from the other Caribbean islands that we compete with? Not the beach, not the sand, not the sun, because they have it as well. But our culture and creativity is what is going to separate us and allow for that economic growth to happen. And so that is my mission. And even, my advice to the young people is just do it. Not everybody is going to see your vision, but if you feel it and your intuition tells you to do it, do it. And that is what I did.
Very, very good advice. Yes, that does deserve applause. Okay, now we cannot speak about culture in Nigeria and not speak about Nollywood or Afrobeats. So Nollywood and Afrobeats have introduced the culture to global audiences, while in the Caribbean, our story is often told through the vibrancy of our carnivals and our festivals. Through our soca, we have soca and calypso and reggae music, and wailers. In St. Kitts, we have a type of music we call wailers. You need to come to St. Kitts to find out what that is. It's intimated in the name. But many might not know that we actually have a significant connection. So your largest artist, global artist, Burna Boy, actually has a hit song with our largest artist. So from the most populated African continent to the, as the premier likes to tell me, to the smallest Western Hemisphere, island in the Western Hemisphere, we're able to connect. Anybody know what that song is called? No? You need to go look for it. It's called Taliban's 2. It was a very big hit, I think for almost a whole summer. It carried for a whole year. So we are already connected through our culture. So how do you see the storytelling that comes through our music and comes through our film industry from both regions? How do you think we can add on to what's been built already to create more impactful storytelling?
Okay, so I have my individual thought process and obviously the center. With the center, we're already a research space. So we already have people coming globally to research, like the clothing, for example, within the archive that we have, the cars from the videos, what was happening in that era, for example, if the film was based on that. But apart from that, we have 120 something publications that are research based or from conferences like this that has a lot of history across Africa, across different sectors. And what I would love to see for the younger people is, why don't we start having content, whether it's educational, whether it's fun, whether it's dance, that showcases Africa. If you're going to, we already own that dance. If you know this. When it comes to music, we're there. When it comes to fashion, we're there. But what are we telling? There's a specific reason I wear what I wear. Everything I wear has a story most of the time, or is connected to supporting, because I like to put my money where my mouth is. So I tend to stay. I brought up this bag for a reason.
Yes.
Because this is the traditional embroidery that we would normally have on our traditional clothes. I'm carrying it today on a bag. This is a younger person designed this.
Yes.
What I'm wearing is using over 650-year dyeing technique on Katsina made. The cotton is from Nigeria, made in Nigeria. The dyeing process is made, but they've innovated, and as you can see, we're using the different fabrics. You can see the designs on them. So almost everything I try to wear, because for me is, I suffered as an entrepreneur, so I know. They would rather fly in a photographer to do the work that I would do at 5% of the price than to hire me, because of that lack of confidence. But obviously things have changed now. And for me, it's like, we can't keep trying to be elsewhere. During lunch today, someone said something about even the differences between Abuja and Lagos. Let's go to Lagos, they do it better there. But I'm like, but why? How and when will the Abuja people learn if we don't support them? So that's the same, I believe, with Africa. It's the same, I believe, with Nigeria, with your country. These are things that we have to support ourselves. If you know anyone that's into content and they need information, why don't we just do a little bit of research? It's not what we see online, because what we have online is actually curated for us.
Yes.
It is not us telling our own stories. And we need more of our stories in there. So we have seen the value chain. Because of a burner boy, 1,000 people probably have jobs created. Because someone decided to do a film, 1,000 people probably had job created. So if we look at things not just from the perspective of the singular individual, and also what we are doing ourselves, I would love to see you in your traditional St. Kitts outfit. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. So I think for me, that is what I believe the creative and cultural sector can do for us. Support our own, tell our stories, wear our own, and the world will not forget. We are different. We are not meant to be the same. We are different in our own individual spaces. You say we have a lot in common.
Yes.
I do hope you get to visit again so we can take you to the museum in Lagos, and you will see what we have as our shared heritage. And you will realize that you may have moved with a culture that hasn't been documented, but your people told that story from parent to child, and that is why you still have a lot of it in common with us today.
Yes.
So it's more like we can actually use the creative and cultural sector to bridge those gaps between us, where we know about ourselves and we're able to work together.
Yes. It's
Thank
interesting
you.
you said that. We were having a, thank you. We were actually having a conversation with our Prime Minister yesterday, and he was talking to us about a lot of that. We talked to us a lot about the oral culture and how it hasn't actually, in the Caribbean or in St. Kitts and Nevis particularly, other islands are a little bit different. We haven't actually passed down the oral culture because we were enslaved. There's a lot of shame attached to the oral culture. So we have people who are 100, 105. They know the culture. They speak about it among each other, but not to the younger people. So it's not carrying on. So that's very significant. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I'll ask you, Roberitine, because I had a question for you, but you answered it before I even got to ask it, about how other ways that we could look at other areas of the indigenous culture, right? So people would assume that the geographic dispersion of the Caribbean island would present unique challenges to collective cultural branding, right? I would assume, as you said, people would assume the same of the continent. It's not the same, and people say, "Oh, it's just Africa." It's not the same. The culture everywhere, right? So, what steps do you think can be taken to unify Caribbean or African creatives, if you believe they should be unified at all, to amplify the impact globally and particularly in partnership?
Right. So I don't believe that it has more challenges than it has for benefits.
Yes.
We already have concepts in place. Those concepts are Global Africa, and we have One Caribbean or CARICOM. And so what I think is needed, because the concepts are there, is more so action. Because we have these discussions, we have certain platforms. We have CariFesta, which is where all the Caribbean islands in the CARICOM community comes together to basically promote our arts and entertainment and cultural industries. I think the same can be done with our sisters and brothers in the African region. I think when we come together, we'll be more of a powerhouse. It's better leveraged in that way than, St. Kitts and Nevis only having that partnership with Nigeria. And we also get to have more global exposure and probably in turn economic returns on those collaborations. So I do think that what's necessary is more so collaboration and action plans. Yes, we have these discussions, but what strategy, what steps, what's next? And that is most critical in terms of fostering those collaboration, whether it is cultural exchanges, whether it's conferences like these. We have a conference that we held, our first conference, the Creative Power Arts Convention, and I'm actively thinking of persons that, we would want to bring back for that convention when it is happening next year, because it's similar to what Canex is.
Yes.
Right. So I never knew that existed. And then when I did the research on it, I was like, wow, it's identical, almost identical, but just on a bigger platform. And so I think through these types of, platforms, we can be a powerhouse.
Excellent. Thank you. You can applaud. That sounds like my opportunity to give a shout out to Afrex Bank. I actually really, we are very grateful. I know we heard of our Prime Minister speaking earlier. I was actually at that same conference with him, and it was actually very inspiring. And one of the things that actually President Orama said was, they brought you here in boats, but we came back for you in planes. It really stuck with me. I actually started to cry. I was very emotional about it. I think that was the first time we had all been in a space together, and you could visibly see on the faces of our African brothers and sisters and our Caribbean brothers and sisters this familiarity that we didn't know we had. That everything was like, oh no, we're just the same. Oh, these people are just like us. It was like a real excitement and an energy in the air. So I like to think that this is, the Afrex Bank has done a great work in combining the Caribbean and Africa, like they're doing the work of the African Union in some ways, and we're so excited about the ways that they've expressed themselves in the Caribbean. So I want to take this opportunity actually to mention a project that is actually being developed in the OECS with Afrex Bank, which is our Creative Economy Initiative. And it's intended to transform film and television in the region. So its goals are to create a self-sustaining creative economy through the OECS, with 3 national training programs per OECS country, 4 regional training sessions annually, focusing on screenwriting and production, directing, and post-production. It's got 1 US internship and 1 African exchange program, which is pretty exciting. The development and production of 6 high-profile Studio 327, which is a youth-led studio in St. Kitts and Nevis, and television projects, also working with Creative TV, which is falls under our minister's portfolio, and strategic content distribution through major platforms such as Netflix and Hulu, Amazon Prime, and international cinema markets. So we're very excited about this project. We want to thank Afrexim Bank. We look forward to seeing this project get off the ground, and that would be an opportunity for us to work together. That being said, I want to ask an interesting question. Well, two questions. I'll start with translating creativity into economic power remains a challenge in both regions. We don't all have Afrexim Bank all the time, right? So what practical solutions do you see as a key to ensuring that Nigerian and Caribbean creatives can thrive globally? Either one? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think first things first, that's why we had to review these policies and just to update them to what is happening today. And with that, we have made calls and we continue to receive information from especially the younger generation. You're looking at technology, innovation, ensuring that the right people get the right access to being able to have a banking system. There's so many things that interconnect with, you can be as creative as you want, but then if you don't have access to where you're going to go. So here in Nigeria, we're creating hubs, the ministry in itself, which is combined arts, culture, tourism, and creative economy. We're all working together with the various agencies under the ministry to have hubs in every state. Mm-hmm. We start with every state. It goes down to the local government. So in the end, we'll probably have around, I think the target is around 600 before we get to the 774, which is the number of local governments that we have. And the idea for that is to ensure that as people are building, they have a space where they can come to, whether it's to learn or to distribute the items that they create or get recorded just like you. Mm-hmm. And I know it's going to be a tough journey because we've already seen funding-wise that the level of commitment that we would want, thanks to Afrexim too, because I think a lot of the things we've achieved so far has been in connection to Afrexim Bank. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things are happening. We are also new as a ministry, so there's still a lot of work being done behind the scenes. But the main thing for us is, how do we bridge these gaps? We just had a discussion on PPPs. We always have had the private sector, but it's almost always looking at things from the perspective of profit and how much they can make off the talent. But what we would want to see is investment in actual spaces that can build and support those with the talent, give them access to their monies, to their royalties. We are tired of the world just coming and taking and leaving. Because as I'm talking to you now, I looked at the over 1,000 vinyl records in the agency, and these are people that it's going to be so hard to even know where they are.
Yes.
And these came from all these countries. And their music is being sampled. We have so much work. We need the legal people to start looking into entertainment law, into IP law, because we don't have enough lawyers who fully understand what it means for the creative sector to build. But we are working with the Nigeria Bar Association also to see how we can get them to also influence lawyers to get into that sector. And luckily, our minister, who is also a female, is also a lawyer and an artist herself. So she gets it. So the idea is, how do we ensure that we get the support that they need? Mm-hmm. And for us, this is where these investments also come in. Mm-hmm. For us as an agency, we want to be able to have our stories being told in whatever Africa-based event, whatever global event. We need the world to hear us, to know us, to understand us, right? To see things from our perspective and the people that we've left behind. Because I say this a lot. We have left a lot of people behind. And now that Africa diaspora and Africans, we're all different. We need to change that narrative because we are really the same. Yes. The only difference is culture, and that happens even just getting across the road to Ghana.
Yes.
The culture there can be slightly different. Just the next state right here, they're like another 30 languages far away, but all in all, we are the same. Mm-hmm. And we have had the same ancestors. And at the end of the day, how do we now put this on paper to ensure that it is applicable, it is actionable, and we have the right commitment from all the different stakeholders to ensure that this is a positively growing space. I think I get very frustrated when I start to talk about it because I believe we're probably like 30 years behind in where we should be within the creative and cultural space.
Yes.
And the sports space too. So yeah, thank you.
I am very happy that you have a minister that supports you and, is a creative themselves. And likewise with our minister, poet, videographer. So his entire life spanned from the creative economy. And so coming in, he knew exactly what was needed in terms of development. And so we actively assess what more can be done, how we're going to navigate that space. And so, as I said, we're small and we're also a baby. However, so that means there's a lot of things that we have to address. I have here a list. One being access to the different markets. So we can't just keep our talents in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have to export our talent. That's economics as well.
Yes.
And so I think because of, influence, especially social media, we automatically think when we export talent, it's to the US. And coming here, I was like, learning about the population that Africa has. It's like, why not to Africa? Why not? And so access to markets. And so even this platform here is tapping into access to marketing our creative talents and networking and fostering those collaborations. Infrastructure is another big challenge that we have. However, the minister was able to secure us developing the Creative Arts Center through CBI. And so even the CBI program has helped us develop our creative industries. And so we have infrastructure. My hope is, though, we have creative hubs across the islands. So we have that main Creative Arts Center, but we also have creative hubs across the islands in different, various art forms. Financing, that is another big area. However, one program that we started through the government is the Creative Arts Fund, where we gave grants to, remember our population, so it's roughly 55,000.
It's about 55,000.
Yes.
Sometimes we like to add 10,000 to Nevis' population and get extra numbers.
We were able to give grants up to $15,000 to creative individuals, enterprises, and groups to stimulate that, the creative economy, because that is what's needed. Financing is a problem because banks think that it's a volatile industry because it's not yet formalized. And so we have to, assist with that progress of, the help to or the access to financing. Human capital. And that is why I did what I did in terms of studying arts administration. Yes, we have unlimited talent, but the lack of knowledge or the limited knowledge and education we have in developing the industry we need more of it. And so I would even advise people, in terms of studying, careers to study, it doesn't have to be, you have to be a creative, be a music producer, but even if you're going the field of entertainment law, advocacy, policy development, arts administration on a whole, that would help in terms of our development. And sectoral integration is important. We need all other sectors to help advance and professionalize this industry. I mentioned tourism. Health is also a big one. We can assist with advancing our health and getting people more healthier through the arts, whether it's visual arts, performing arts, and so forth. So these are just some of the areas where we have challenges, we have gaps, but we're actively working on improving it and getting the creative industries where it needs to be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel like that, you can put your hands together. I feel like that was a great place for us to almost end. I just have one last question. I know they're over there like, it's the last question. I just have one last question for both of you. Okay, so if you were to co-produce a film that reflects the essence of Nigeria and the Caribbean, what themes, narratives, or cultural elements would you want to highlight? Yeah, that's my final one. I had to make it a good one.
Well, for me, I would love to see fashion, the stories that we tell. So I will tell you this, on our clothing, back then, our people, the kings, would send people to the next village or to the next king wearing fabrics with designs on them, and people just thought it was like a tribal design.
Yes.
But it actually had stories on there, which were messages that they were sending to to a person that is in that community, without people knowing the language, right? So I want to see those kind of stories embedded within this space. Like, how do we relearn these languages that we've forgotten? That would be my main theme for me. How do we subliminally put these stories in there? So by the time you're done, you don't even know you've learned so much. I think that's really what would be the theme for me. Thank you.
And for you?
Because my background is dance, I will create a dance film, but to be more thought-provoking, and also because you asked if we have to co-produce, so that means a collaboration between Nigeria and St. Kitts Nevis. And because we have so many similarities in our dance, I would want to assess and basically dissect every piece of the art form, whether it's in terms of the history of it, to the modernization of it, and then including some sort of messaging. I prefer thought-provoking messages, so nothing on the surface level, but that is what I foresee in terms of if we were to co-create a film, it would be a dance film.
Well, I'd like to put out in the universe this film. I'm just putting it out there. Anybody who's looking to be coming to St. Kitts to invest in film, look, we have a vision already. So please, can we put our hands together to thank our panelists? Thank you for a very thought-provoking discussion, and we look forward to working together in the future.
Please, a round of applause for these phenomenal women.